everyone. This is Ryan Scott here again. I'm the lead columnist for D3Hoops.com, and we have a special guest with us. We have Joey Flannery here, who is the associate head coach at Babson right now. But the reason that he's here is that he is being inducted into the Small College Basketball Hall of Fame this fall. Joey's, in addition to being a great coach, one of the greatest Division III players of all time. So we'll just start there, Joey. How does it feel to be inducted into this Hall of Fame?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's a really great honor. I was at first certainly and still am questioning my worthiness of it, but really excited and fortunate to be a part of it, and extremely grateful for everyone who had a piece in getting me in there.
Yeah. For those of you who are not familiar, not the deep D3 heads, Joey Flannery scored 2,620 points in his 4 years at Babson. Led the team to two Final Fours, including the 2017 national championship, where he was the most outstanding player. We can go through all the accolades, and he can look embarrassed about this. We four-time either shared or outright won the NUMAC Player of the Year all 4 years. He was a D3Hoops.com first team All American, sophomore, junior, senior year. We give him a pass. He did not win the Rookie of the Year award because he happened to start the same year that a guy named Duncan Robinson was also a freshman, and so we'll forgive that one. Um, Went on to play a year of pro ball, and then has been coaching at Villanova with Jay Wright, and now back at Babson. So really worthy recipient of this, but quite an honor. The first player who graduated in the 2000s to be inducted into this Hall of Fame. Um, you've never struck me as somebody who really likes talking about themselves all that much, but what does it mean, like, for your family to have this honor? And I know how close you are with them, and how hard they work to help you get here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everyone was certainly excited, and I always go back to our national title, and of course, not being able to do it without our teammates and coaches. But we were all excited and proud of the work and dedication that I think myself and all of my family and everyone else had a big part of. So certainly humbling to say the least to be a part of those who have been in the small college Hall of Fame, and to be the first in the 2000s and the youngest guy is another one where it makes you look in the mirror and kind of look back at all the other guys that are in the Hall of Fame and know that there are some pretty notable names, and it's a special class to be a part of. So I can't wait for October to get in, and then right after that we're going. The Beavers are back in action November 8th, so right on to the next season. But it's been great and truly fortunate.
And that's the one thing. I mean, I was a little surprised that you were the one, not just because you're obviously a great player, but I think a lot of the things that made you great were intangible sorts of things. And everybody I talked to talked about the relentlessness and the determination and the work ethic, that you just put in more time than anybody else, which often doesn't get noticed for these sorts of awards. And the fact that obviously we went through all your stats and everything, and you scored a lot of points and you won a lot of games, but where does that work ethic come from? Is that something you had to learn? Is that something that's always been in you? That's just the number one thing
Yeah,
people say.
that's a great question, Ryan. I think, I've heard people say all sorts of quotes on work ethic and, being a skill, it being, however you want to put it. But I think it's certainly learned for me. I always had something deep down that, and then once I fell in love with the game and knew what I wanted to do, I set my sights on certain goals. But I think, along the road comes certain people in your life who impact that and kind of change your perspective on where you can go. And for me, that was all sorts of people where it kind of kept increasing my work ethic and wanted me to get to a higher level. Because you really don't know how good you can get, right? Until you're done playing. So done a lot of reflecting, and certainly, hey, I play, here and there when I can pick up, now that I'm being back in Boston, and there's so many good D2 and D3 guys who are a lot better than me now, and I think probably were back then too. And it's just an honor to be recognized individually, but I definitely know and certainly appreciate the fact that I would not be the recipient of any of these honors or awards without some of the guys I played with, who just did a lot for me and covered for me. And hey, I watched a lot of games, Ryan, of Babson over the years, from even games from the 80s and 90s just to see the difference. And now just getting access to some of this film, and I wish I defended harder. And there's certain things that you look back and you're like, ooh, I don't know if I was really all that they said. So, you question things, and it makes you really appreciate stuff like this and being able to look back on it.
Yeah, it's always a weird thing to receive honors like that, right? Like especially when it's not a game that you can win, right? That's putting the stats up against everybody else. Um, you played hockey as a kid, right? Like that was the first sport that you played. What were the lessons that you learned from that? I think obviously the level of contact probably comes from having grown up with hockey.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, looking back, I love the physicality and definitely seeked out contact when I could, and it was a big part of my game. And hey, would that have translated past the small college level at that time? I don't know, but that was definitely a piece. I'll tell you, I'll go back to the family piece. So I was just from a hockey family, so it always played. Um, and once I made the switch to basketball, I think, people in my family were questioning why I was getting away from hockey. And then my dad probably being one of those guys, but he was one of the family members who were storming the court on our Final Four runs in 2015 and 2017. So I think Babson basketball has just played a huge piece in everyone's life, but definitely hockey. And I've never thought too deeply, Ryan. I'm going to have to now on how that's really impacted my basketball game. But that's an interesting one, um,
Well, and
for
even the
sure. There,
footwork, and you seem to be able to slide between guys when there wasn't always space, and
yeah,
just kind of being able to move on your feet in that way is probably helpful to have grown up skating.
yeah. I think it is so interesting, and just seeing now, evaluating high school kids who maybe had been playing basketball and that's the only sport versus other guys who are maybe three sport athletes, and how they're able to adapt and have different games and different styles, and different kind of knack and feel in their own ways has been interesting to see as a coach, but definitely something that I think played a part in my game, and everyone's who's played
Was
successfully at that level. Go ahead.
Sure. Was there any sort of challenge for your dad to get used to the switch from hockey to basketball? Did that take any time, or did he figure
Oh
out that you were
yeah.
pretty good
Oh
at
yeah.
this?
Oh yeah. I think so. I think so for sure. Um, but no, he he became, and like so many of our other family members, just big supporters and people that really we felt were part of the program, which is what made the run at Babson so special, and everyone who was a part of it in the Babson community. So, um, having all those people on board back then and supporting us, and then now being back at Babson and having a lot of the same faces back in the crowd and on campus has been awesome.
And you can say what you want to say about this, but a lot of people mention how close you are with your family and how important that was. Even doing your grad year in Connecticut, or even being at Villanova, which isn't too far away, was a number of people said it's probably too far for him, right? He wants to be near home, he wants to be near the family. What has that relationship meant for you, and how has that shaped you?
I'm sorry, but with the family though.
Yeah, just being a tight knit
Yeah.
family that's close.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was amazing being able to have my family in the crowd at all the games, right? From grandparents to cousins, my sisters, my parents, of course, and other of my teammates' parents who and siblings who became family to me. But it was always special to be able to do that and make them proud, um, and have them be a piece of it has been the big thing. And I'll forever be grateful for that, and certainly thankful that so many of them were in attendance and were able to be at almost all the games. So it's meant a great deal to me, and continues to now. So.
And I assume that being close had something to do with going to Babson. But were there any other options out there, or were you locked in on
Yeah,
that pretty early?
yeah, so after I joke with people now that I did a post grad year to go Division 3. Um, so it's unheard of now, but now you hear everyone doing it. But I would say that there were another number of schools, but most of the Division 2 schools I couldn't play at. I didn't have scholarships. I wasn't going to get one from them, and that wasn't my opinion. That was what I was told. So, hey, I accepted that, and Coach Brennan I knew was going to be there for me beyond basketball and beyond leaving the campus after those 4 years. And with it being close to home, that definitely played a piece in terms of some of the other ones that may have been out of region. But I really knew kind of after my visits and getting to know the coaching staff and the people at Babson that that was where I wanted to be even before I got to Taft. So I really just need to handle what I did in my year at Taft and knew that I was setting myself up to hopefully have a great 4 years at Babson.
So did they tell you? I mean, we're going back now. Why you were not at the level to get a scholarship? I talked to Matt Droney already, your friend and former teammate, who was like, I knew day one he was the best player on our team. And I talked to Coach Brennan, and he was like, I don't know, maybe he didn't shoot the three well enough for them. Did they
Yeah,
tell you what you had to work on or what they didn't like? Because it seemed like you had a pretty good,
you know,
pretty complete
yeah,
game even coming in.
recruitment it was so different. I think than even to this day. So maybe I didn't have that feedback that some of the kids get nowadays. Um, but hey, like I just think I was just straight up told I wasn't good enough. Like there was a questioning one thing. Like I think probably the athleticism. Can I slide my feet in guard? My guard, my forward, my wing, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
Um, the shooting, hey, was I a great shooter? No, and I never was a lights out shooter, but that probably would have been something. And hey, I, you know, I kick myself in the recruiting process nowadays, trying not to miss on kids, right? Because you just don't
Yeah.
want to do that for the sake of them or your, obviously your program, but for the sake of kids who are going through the recruiting process and get misplaced or end up at schools that they aren't happy at. Um, but that's just kind of how it goes, and that's certainly something that's going to motivate kids, and definitely motivated me to be able to get to that level, um, and then really prove to myself that I could do it and see how good I could get. So it's an interesting one, and there were some options a little bit after 2 years, but as you know, Ryan, there's so many Division III guys that can play at the next level, and I think the transfer portal has allowed visibility to that and kind of made it
Yep.
easier. That being one of the positives of it. And of course, the We Are D3 guys doing their thing, but there's just so
Yep.
many guys that can play at that level. Um, but it's changing and it continues to. So we'll see where it goes here.
Yeah. What was your confidence like coming into college as a freshman? I know you talked about not having like a set position, which ended up being really beneficial for Babson because you ended up doing a lot of different things over your 4 years there. You were handling the ball some years and you kind of playing high post sometimes, you're on the wing. Did you kind of know that you had those capabilities coming in? I know you were a scorer right away. You were scoring a bunch of points early, but
Mhm.
what were your thoughts about your own game coming in and what did you kind of have to work and grow into?
Yeah, I don't think I had the confidence right away to step in and do what I ended up doing. I would say there were definitely a few moments I can remember my freshman year, and the coaches can't work with you in the fall right when you get there, so you're playing pickup and you're with your teammates, and that's it. So you're kind of figuring it out in a different way. And as a freshman, that can be challenging. And I certainly had my challenges, and I wasn't being aggressive in pickup. And I remember that vividly. And I was, not doing what I could have done. So I had older guys, juniors and seniors, who some of them I'm great friends with. Dave Mack in particular was one who kind of pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, you're going to do X, Y, Z. You can. So just start doing it. That type of stuff." And in a better way than that. And he was a great leader who I relied on in a lot of ways. And so those guys allowed me to then realize that. But I had a couple lucky breaks early where, hey, guys got banged up, and I wasn't in the starting lineup or I wasn't for that first week of practice before leading up to our scrimmage. I was not in the starting lineup, and that was a late change. So I actually had, I think I was an efficient game in my first year, and I had a freshman or a senior point guard, Kenny Ross, who was a fifth year, was at West Virginia and then at Delphi, and he made things really easy for me. And I always joked that I had to run the left wing, make layups, and make a couple open catch and shoot threes every once in a while. But I didn't have that confidence right away, and I struggled, and then kind of started to click. But there are so many moments throughout my career where there was a loss my sophomore year against WPI at home, at Bates on the road in 2016. All those games, that were just heartbreakers and crushers. Double overtime Amherst game. I saw Johnny McCarthy at the park a couple of weeks ago, who hit the three from 35 feet to force overtime. Um, so all of those things play a part in it, and are some of the painful memories that allow you to kind of keep pushing and keep getting to where you need to. And it's where, hey, everyone's journey is going to be different, whether they have a great first year, a rough one. Um, and for me, it just looked a little bit different, but I certainly had the challenges early in games that were painful, and sleepless nights after being denied and not being able to adjust to certain coverages was a learning process. And hey, we had so many. I always go back to it. I wouldn't have been able to do those things, and my assists were highest my senior year. And I like to think that I was being more unselfish, but I think, hey, our teammates were unbelievable, and we just gelled as a unit, and that was it. So I really give a lot to the teammates. Um, because there's just a ton of talent, and we were so cohesive that it allowed me to do things more efficiently than I might have otherwise.
Sure. And having that, I mean, your coach mentioned that as well, having those senior guys your freshman year to help kind of ease you into things had to have been really, really helpful, as you mentioned. But then sophomore year, they're all graduating. It's a bunch of you young guys are having to figure this out, and you made a run to the Final Four. What was that experience like? Kind of realizing what you could do, and then also some of the limitations when Augustana kind of smacked you guys down and
Yeah,
taught you a
yeah.
lesson at
So
the end.
yeah, that was certainly a tough one. They certainly did teach us a lesson. I like to think we taught some of their younger guys a similar lesson in 2017.
Yeah.
Um, but but no, I mean, we had three unbelievable seniors in 2015 as well. So it was really those 2 years were just years where I was able to play basketball and not have to worry about a lot of the stuff in the locker room, the leadership. Um, you know, they covered communication stuff for me on defense. They put me in the right spots at points where they had done a little. And hey, Eric Dean guarded the best player. I didn't have to do that at that point. It had changed. So there were guys that I certainly relied on. But you know, after some of those guys left in the first 2 years, we had to adjust and kind of figure it out in a different way. And obviously, you talk with Droney, and he came in, and then Isaiah came in the next year, and we had already had our core group of seniors to pair with them, and then the juniors took a big leap. And I think the work ethic piece kind of wore off on each other, and all of a sudden we had um, you know 15 guys in the gym all the time, really, and just grinding it to win a title. And I think those guys who taught me, and I think the rest of our 2017 class, a lot about leadership and work ethic and commitment and unity, and how to get it done as a unit in the face of adversity. Um, I think those guys had a huge piece, and those guys know that and feel that. And we're back at the 2017 games, and I think that championship was a big piece of kind of everyone that had played with us and come before in the program, dating all the way back, decades, who had all kind of put it in to build what we call the Babson Basketball Brotherhood, and we took a lot of pride in it, and everyone still does to this day. But those guys were incredible that I was able to learn from and kind of take some of that stuff that a lot of people didn't see that were necessary for us to have success, and they would handle it as the older guys. And I in my quite honestly, I was relied on to score points. I thought I had a lot of points, and that was my role at the time. But those guys enabled that and did a lot of the things so that I got this type of stuff in my mind. So
Sure. And then junior year, kind of all set to go back again, and you had some injury issues at the end of the year, and um, obviously didn't get back to the Final Four that junior
mhm.
year. But again, talking to Coach and Droney and some of the other guys, like there was a real understanding of what was possible at the end of that junior, going into your senior year. Like it was really championship or bust kind of for you guys in your mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There was no other way to put that. We were crushed after that loss at Tufts against Amherst in 2016, and most of us spent the following week together, and hours together, and nights and days in the off season, just talking about it, thinking about it, working for it, planning for it, all that types of stuff. So we put tons of time and energy into it. And looking back on it, did we talk too much about it? Maybe because we were so focused on it that if it didn't happen, and one of the calls go the other way, it's even more heartbreaking perhaps. But uh, we were just so locked in on that being the goal that I think probably allowed me to play even better, because I just was, hey, national title, and that's it. And that was how we all thought, and that was what we talked about.
You mentioned the double overtime Amherst game earlier. Talking to your coach, he still has a hard time talking about that. I
Absolutely.
bring it up because in my mind, I was able to watch the stream for that one, and it's still the best regular season game that I think I've ever seen in Division Three. Like it, double overtime, two of the best teams in the country, back and forth. Everybody was playing well. You guys came out on the wrong side of that, but I mean, do you have any way to look back at that and with any sort of fondness, or I guess because you won at the end, it
Uh,
made it okay, but
I can tell you I took about 8 bad shots. I hit some tough ones. Um, I missed a couple throwbacks off ball screens that I would have hit a shooter on that would have probably changed the game. I didn't defend hard enough. So certainly not a lot of positives that I look at from that game. But it definitely, I think, in ways that we don't think about, um, made us tougher, made us more together as a unit. We had been in, yet again, another tough atmosphere. And it was never anything that we back down from or were intimidated by. I think our group loved playing on the road and in front of those crowds more than anything. Um, and you can go to the X's and O's of the game and what we could have done and what we should have done. But it's just one of those ones that really ignite you. And hey, we sat in that locker room, that tiny locker room on the baseline at Amherst for a long time, just kind of head down, thinking about it, um, knowing the magnitude of the game and in terms of the postseason. And our goal, we wanted to host in the NCAA tournament, and that was going to be, at the time, we thought a pivotal game, and one that we
for sure.
felt
Yep.
we should have won, and didn't handle it. And they had hit some big shots and made some big plays. But I think all of those you probably take a little bit from, but there's certainly that one in particular, and 3 to 4 other losses that you can look back on and are still just killer to this day, as you realize from talking to Coach Brennan.
He didn't even want to talk about it. Like
No.
he was still sore about that one. And for anyone watching this who doesn't know what we're talking about, Joey did actually score 41 points and play all 50 minutes of that game, so it's not as terrible as he makes it sound. Um, but yeah, it did seem like it set you guys up for that run in the tournament to know, like, we can't let that happen again, right? Like that, and the
Mm-hmm.
run you had through the tournament was a ton of really great teams um, to play all the way through.
Right.
Um, there was no let up, right? Like Raheem
Yeah.
Anderson and that Hudson team at the beginning, he's another like
Yeah,
2,500
that's
point
true.
scorer.
Yeah,
Tufts
that's a
in there
name.
again that you've been battling all over the place. That um,
Yeah, Skidmore. We almost lost to
Skidmore,
Skidmore
right? The
the second
Skidmore team
round.
was, yeah,
Yeah, so
about
we
as
were
good as
no,
they
that
ever
that's a
had.
great point, Ryan. I mean, we had so many close games. I think each guy had a different number of them, whether they were a part of it as a freshman, sophomore, and on. But those last 2 years, we had so many close games, and games where we were down big at half for whatever reason. And I think those shaped us as a unit, and allowed us to kind of come together and improve and get stops, was what it come down to in crunch moments down the stretch. That game was high scoring at Amherst, and we were not getting stops. I know that we were able to keep up with them offensively, and we were hitting threes. I know Common, all other guys got going, but we knew that what to your so we knew that wasn't the sustainable way to do it moving forward, and we were down, I want to say 6 or 8 to Skidmore in the second round at home with 3 or 4 minutes left, and kind of a similar thing that we had gone through in the past. It felt like a number of times. So it was kind of just, hey, this is another one of those moments. Let's do it. You know, grind it out together. And then of course we had um, the game in the Final Four, which I'm sure you're going to get to. So it's kind of
Yeah,
all
that's
those, I
the
think,
next thing
play a
up.
piece of it, and even our group, who we have a really tight knit group to this day from those teams, and we talk about it when some of us are together. Wait, whether was it a foul on the last play of this game? Um, what would have happened? Do we know this? Do we really think about the fact that we were losing to Skidmore in the second round and wouldn't even have been in the Sweet 16? All that types of stuff we talk about and bounce back and forth. So
Yeah, so I have to fact check him before I write anything. But Coach said you guys were down at halftime 5 out of the 6 games in the tournament. Um,
wow, I
we'll
didn't
we'll
I
check
don't
on that.
remember
But the
that
big
one.
one, of course, is the Whitman game in the semifinals, national semifinals in Salem. Whitman team is one of the best Eric Bridgeland ever had out there. Really strong, chaotic. They can jump on you really fast, and they did. 12 minutes in, you guys are down 25. Um, and I've heard lots about that huddle when the timeout gets called under 8. What do you remember about just that conversation sitting there down 25 in the national semifinals against a team that didn't seem like they were going to let up?
Yeah. I remember walking off the court to the huddle. I think in a little bit of disbelief that this was happening. Um, and then quickly, I think we all snapped right out of it and kind of just said, "All right, well, now's the time to do it. So let's go. Let's go out, go on a run, and win the game." Like I think was pretty much as simple as we put it to each other. Um,
Yeah.
and hey, and of course there was, we needed to get stops, right, and we needed to take care of the ball. But aside from that, it was like, hey, let's just get this done yet again. And somehow we did it. I mean, everyone played a role from, kid who was a backup point guard, Chris Lowry, when our other guy, Bo Miller, who had, started forever for us, had these lingering concussions and um, serious issues. So even guys like that were a huge part of that, 20-point run or whatever it was. Um, that I can't even explain it to you and how it happened. Um,
Yeah. Well,
I've watched most of it, and it's still painful to watch those first 12 minutes.
yeah. So they got it all the way back for anyone who doesn't want to look it up, all the way back to 4 at halftime, and then we're able to win that game, obviously, and go on to the national championship game where you play in Augustana, basically a different team than the one you had faced 2 years earlier, but same name on the jersey. Um, and that was a back and forth, two really, really good teams. They were kind of like you had been 2 years before, a bunch of young guys who had made a run that maybe was a little unexpected, and they were showing up really strong, back and forth. And of course, we got to ask about the end. Missed free throw, and then you are somehow teleporting back to the other end of the court to make a block that saves the game. Um, is there any conscious thought in that? Is that all instinct to just say, I got to get back, I got to finish this? Or are you thinking about anything at all?
Um, I think a little bit of both. I mean, I definitely saw that 14 Nolan Evil, I think was his name, right?
Yep.
That he had the ball and he had been going right all game. I'll have to find it for you. I'll have to find the clip. There was a play earlier where he did the same thing in the game, and I couldn't get my right left takeoff to go and try to block it. And I think he was a little further out than he was on the final play. So he had been going right for most of the game. So I had kind of had the vibe that he was going to hesitate, go right, get downhill. And I was on the opposite side, so I didn't think there was going to be the time where he was going to be able to skip it and run him back in. So I went up, certainly instincts, and I think probably got a little bit higher up than maybe I normally would have, and was able to get it on the glass. But combination of both for sure.
Yeah, and then the iconic jumping up on the scores table. I said Ty Nichols copied you this summer with the We Are D3 thing. So want to make sure you get proper credit for the
Yeah, thanks,
celebration.
Rye. Thanks.
Um, but what did it mean with those guys, right? That's what it really felt like. It was a group of guys. You obviously were the leader in terms of scoring and a lot of other things, but it was a team effort. And what did it mean to win that together?
Yeah, that's it right there. And it was together, and I was up on the scores table, but I was yelling to, our families and my family and everyone that was a part of it with us, our alums. So it was kind of everyone, in it together. And then of course we had a really tight knit team, tight knit group of seniors um, who had gone through a lot together, on and off the court, and had really, like we said, focused on this one goal. So um, it just all happening and kind of being a dream come true was surreal, and we were able to spend a lot of time together, even to this day, and reminisce on it with our teammates, coaches, alums. That's exactly it right there, Ryan. We're the people that were a part of it was what made it so special and made it so worthwhile to put in all that work just to get to that moment and then get it done was incredible, obviously.
Um, the teammates love you. That's just to say. Um, but one of the things that I don't know if it makes you special, makes you unique. A lot of times, a star player, somebody who works as hard as you, demands as much of yourself, can sometimes get on the wrong side of the teammates who maybe aren't as good or are not as capable. And especially now that you've had some experience as a coach, what is it do you think about your personality and the way that you view other people that you were able to bring them along in a way that maybe some other star basketball players alienate their teammates along the way?
Yeah, I think we really got to know each other so well, and we had such great relationships. Was what it come down to. We cared about each other so much, um, and we were all family to each other. So I don't know. I don't know that I have that answer. But
That's fine.
but
It's
it's an
probably a
interesting
hard
one.
thing to think about. It is just who
Yeah.
you are. Um, I'm sure you've seen that now, especially as a coach, though. Different players that can get frustrated when somebody can't do as much as them or doesn't work as hard. Um, what have you taken away from your experience that's helped you as a coach to kind of bring teams together and encourage players to sacrifice for their teammates?
Yeah, no, a ton, and just being able to see, and I see each day how much, the game has done for me and my experience, and the moments of adversity, and how, those are sometimes the ones you reflect on most. And of course, our title, but it's the tough moments off the court that you go through together, and really the bond that you break. Where hey, at the end of the day, you're in it, and if you really believe in being a part of something bigger than yourself, then that's what we try to teach here at Babson, and just really what it means, to be a part of that in a successful group who's committed to one goal and united and feel that, right? I think, a lot of kids this day and age, they don't feel that and they don't understand that. So it's a constant battle of trying to teach um, and get guys to believe in how you want to do things.
Yeah, and I may have a few more questions asked when we stop the recording, but the last one I want to leave on here. Why coming back to Babson? What was this choice? You were at Villanova. I think there's probably a path to keep going up the D1 ranks if you had wanted to go that route. What was the decision to come back to Babson and invest back in the old team?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely a big thing to get back to this level. Of course, Division 3 I wanted to do, and being back at a place back home, close to family, was important to me. So having this opportunity open up at Babson to be back with Coach Brennan, who I played for, was just something that I was extremely excited for, and we were able to make happen. So it's meant a lot. It's been almost 1 year, I believe, 1 year next Monday, that I've been back, and it's been special, and being able to pass on a lot of things that I've learned, and hey, I continue to learn from our players as well, and what they go through on a day to day basis, and how things have changed, whether that's the landscape of college athletics, our conference, whatever it may be. So just things that, hey, I've gone through myself, and have seen my teammates go through. So being able to be there for our guys has been extremely enjoyable. and something that I'm really looking forward to for years to come here.